Hi, welcome to Tabcast, my vodcast. Today we are speaking to Katie Olliffe, who's my very dear friend. Welcome, Katie.
Hello.
Katie is a doula, which is somebody who helps people give birth, like a birthing partner, but I'll let her explain that. And she's also got lots of other hats that we want to talk to her about today. So we're going to hopefully have a very interesting chat with her. Okay, Katie, so would you like to my first question is, what is a doula? Because that's your sort of, well, I need to speak about how I met you, actually. That's what I normally do. So I met Katie when I had my first daughter, who's now 7. So I've known you about 7, nearly 8 years. And I basically was looking for some help because I suddenly had this baby that I couldn't do anything with. And so I was flicking through scrolling through probably Facebook or something like that, and I came across this thing called Baby Calm, I think it was, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong with that. And I found Katie and called her, and the rest is history, because you really helped me, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I remember that first phone call, and I remember, yeah, I do, and I also remember coming to see you, and
in our little cottage in Milton, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you know, when you meet someone for the first time, I don't get this very often, but with you, I had this thing where I knew we'd be friends as soon as I met you, and that's happened a few times with me, where I've met people the first time I've ever met them or spoken to them on the phone, just feel really drawn to you as a person. Yeah.
Totally.
And intrigued by you as well.
Sorry?
Like, I was intrigued by you as well. Because
lovely.
Because you'd had your family in 2 sort of parts, and and you were a police officer, weren't you, at the time?
Yeah, I was. I'd had three boys. I think my youngest boy was then 14, and then I'd obviously had a career in the middle as a police officer, and then met somebody else and had now got 2 little girls. So I sort of had this massive gap in the middle and a story to tell in the middle there. But then you then said to me, did I want to come to some exercise classes, didn't you? That was how it progressed to more of a friendship, wasn't it? We started in the exercise class, didn't we?
I think we did one.
Sorry?
I think we did one.
Oh, I kept going. Yes,
I kept on with you. Yeah. I think I was trying to pull you into a world where you might meet some other mums with babies, because it's hard, isn't it, when you've like done it 3 times before? Like, you don't do all of the same things antenatally, I don't think, and meet as many people.
No, because they're all with their first babies and things, aren't they? So it's very difficult when it's and I was ancient as well. I was 40 when I had Bonnie. So it was like a whole. I wasn't a new mum. I wasn't a young mum. So I didn't I don't think I also had the career as well. So I didn't really need that sort of new mum experience type thing. But I still needed support, which is where you came in.
Yeah,
did support me, and then I have supported me ever since with lots of different things that have gone on, so thank you for that.
Oh, that's me. That is me.
Yes,
I'm supporting people,
yes,
especially people that mean a lot to me. So I'll always give time to people that are special.
But also complete strangers.
You were to begin with, but
forward. So my first question, I'll go back to that, is what is a doula in your words? How would you describe what is a doula?
It's one of those funny things that nobody actually really knows what it is. When you say I'm a doula, it gets misconstrued as all sorts of things. I've got a funny story about that, I'll tell you in a minute. But an actual doula is to be a birth support partner, a non-medical birth support partner. So I'm there in the capacity of being an emotional and practical support to a family when they're sort of going through pregnancy and then their birth. And then so I'm a birth and postnatal doula. So I'm either there for the antenatal and labour and birth and early postnatal part, or sometimes with families just the postnatal part.
I didn't know that.
And so when I've introduced myself as I'll often call myself a birth support partner or a non-medical birth support partner, because when I've introduced myself to people and they've asked me what I do and I've said I'm a doula, sometimes people think you're saying you're a jeweler, and that's completely not the right answer. And I've had some funny conversation around that. But the other one is that I'm a dealer. And I was at a party and one of my clients was there. I didn't know that we shared some friends, and she introduced me to some friends, and she was like, oh, Katie was my doula. And then later on, this guy said to me, so how do you know her? And I said, oh, I was there when her baby was born. And he was like, oh, I thought you said that I thought she said you were her dealer. And I was like,
really drug dealer, Katie.
Definitely not. So yeah, some funny conversations around what my job is.
That's hilarious. It is though, isn't it? It's not a word that, unless you've used one like I have, if ever I hear the word now, I obviously know what it is, but unless you're sort of in that kind of, if you've ever used one, or do you know what I mean? You wouldn't really know what it is.
Well, I didn't know what it was. I knew that I wanted to do work like this, but I didn't know the word. I didn't know it existed in that format. Yeah.
So why didn't you train to be a midwife then?
Well, you know what? It's a really different role. My godmother, who I call Auntie, she was a midwife, and I knew she was quite fatigued by her role in the end. Like she'd been a midwife for a long time. She was an excellent midwife, but she used to sort of talk about how hospital policy and how things were in the NHS now had kind of pulled her away from the reason she went into her job. And I think that's quite a common thing actually when you speak to midwives. And I actually am all about being there for the birthing person, the mum. And I want to be able to be by her side and scaffold her and support her. And I think now, midwives unfortunately have to take so many notes.
Yeah.
So, a midwife that I was listening to at a conference was saying 10 years ago when she went into her job, all you used to record was the mum's name and the baby's birth time and weight. Yeah. But now they're on their computer the whole time. They have to record literally everything.
Yeah.
That pulls them away from being next to you, I suppose, really, isn't it?
That is so obvious as well. Like my last baby was born nearly 2 years ago, and the whole time that we were in the hospital, because I had to have a hospital birth because I'm an old birth, and a geriatric.
They call you geriatric? Yeah. How rude.
I think I was a geriatric with Eris, my son, who's now 22. So I think that it just means old, doesn't it?
I think they class you as it when you're over 35, maybe.
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah. So, but no, because that would make me 67.
No, it can't be right.
I don't know. Anyway, I'll edit that bit out. So, what on earth was I saying? Oh yes, it was so obvious that her head was down the whole time, not down where it needed to be either. It was down in her in writing.
Yeah.
But I mean, me and Benson irritated her as soon as we met her, to be honest, because I think we had you on the phone, didn't we? And Benson was constantly either texting you or calling you. And she didn't like the fact that I was just saying no to everything. Katie said no.
Yeah, they don't like it when you ask questions.
No, and they don't like it when you say no to stuff like, they wanted to induce me, and I was just like, no, I just want to do it. I know I can do it. I don't want any intervention whatsoever. And because you were there at the end of the phone, we had the kind of the confidence to say no, but it was only because you were there. I honestly don't think I would have, because as a birthing mother, a mother in labour, you are so you're in a little bubble.
Yeah,
you really don't want to be answered. Even like when one of the ladies came and asked me if I wanted a cup of tea or coffee, I didn't want to answer. I was still on the ward and I was like ready to push and that, and I just didn't. I couldn't even answer that question. So answering questions about whether I want this to happen or that to happen, is, and when they sort of send in the consultant and say, we really need to get this baby out of you. Then you've got, I had like about 5 people standing at the end of the bed because I was refusing to be induced. And that, who's going to ignore that? The only experience I had and the only knowledge I had was past experience of the other 4 labours. And obviously I knew that my body had been able to do it 4 times, but then I was now 5 years older. So, I wouldn't have been able to kind of go down that road of sort of doing it my way unless I had you on the end of the phone. I don't.
Yeah, and you're in a really primal place when you're in labour, and so coming out of your labour world is really hard, and decision making is really hard as well. So the 2 worlds, when they collide, can lead to a really tricky situation. And I think, I want to kind of clarify that, because I was obviously supporting you to make informed choices, and sometimes when you talk about being a doula, it can sound like our job is about kind of saying no to lots of things, or being disagreeable, or just being, difficult for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can come across that way, I'm sure. But it's actually more about the fact that hospitals are obviously given by the protocols that they have to work to within them, or guidelines that they have to work within. And those protocols and guidelines are sometimes informed by evidence, sometimes they're informed by experience, and sometimes they're informed a little bit by both. And of course, within that there is choice, but often the choice is not offered to us. They want you to follow their guideline because that for them is the least, or what they perceive to be the least risk, or the least chance of things going a different way. But for some people, when they're given the information, they think, actually, no, that what you're trying to ask me to do is not what's right for me. I'm looking at the information that I've been provided with, and I'm deciding, actually, this is not right for me. And I think that's where we had lots of conversations, didn't we, before you had your baby, and about your circumstances, about your age, because that often automatically puts you into a different place in what they want to happen and what they want to do. So and then that gave you hopefully the confidence in the moment to be like, well, we know what we want.
It wasn't just like I hadn't just rang you and said, oh, Katie, by the way, I'm in labour, can you just no, we'd talked about it all. I mean, from the moment I conceived.
Nearly.
As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was on the phone to you, wasn't I, saying, oh my God, what have I done? And we had so many conversations. And then, as we went, we had the proper conversation of, right, okay, how would you like your labour to go? And what if this and what if that? So, it wasn't just like it wasn't a one-off conversation at all. I think because we'd all had the conversation, you, me and Benson, and it was like he was there to remind me of what I discussed with you about every different thing that we might encounter. Sometimes as well, when you've got all these people saying you need to do this, you need to do that, sometimes if you're tired as well at the end of your labour, you're just like, oh, I don't really care now. Remember what you said, and I mean, we're not talking about whether to have pain relief or anything like that. It was more to do with the fact that they wanted to induce me because my waters had broke early, and then I went over the time that they allow you, and that was what, and I think Benson had read somewhere that in the olden days they let you go 72 hours over. Not so olden days either, like I'm talking about.
No, it's not that long ago, no.
30 years ago or something, and he brought that to their attention himself. He said, well, you used to let us go for 72 hours. But so we were already in the bad books with our midwife, and she did. I had dreadlocks. I had full dreadlocks at the time as well, so I was just in this bracket of awkward old mother. And that was that, really. So she may as well not been there.
Yeah, and I think that's difficult. It is difficult when you're going sort of against guidelines, because for midwives they find that quite hard, I think.
Yeah.
And mostly, I suppose, because they want to always ensure they're doing their job properly, as they're, you know, following guidelines, or showing that they've at least expressed a preference for you to follow guidelines. But there's some awesome midwives out there that navigate these conversations really well, and then there are others that get really quite defensive and upset about it, and and it's luck of the draw, isn't it, who you end up with.
I've had 5 babies, and they've all been born in hospital, and I've had 5 nice midwives. So I've had good and bad experiences sort of beforehand and after, you know, postnatally and that sort of thing. But the actual experience of giving birth, I've had 5 good experiences. So
yeah, that's good.
Kind of when I had Declan, he was sort of, that was a bit difficult. But anyway, we won't go into that. So
we'll be here all night if we talk about all our birth stories.
Yeah, and that's like not that interesting either, is it? When people start,
it's me, I'd love to.
I know, but when people start telling me about, I don't know, it depends who it is, but you know, just random people, when they start talking about their birth stories, I just go flatline. Okay, so the history of doulas, that's sort of, do you know much about that?
Yeah, I do a little bit. I know it's a Greek word. The word, and actually, I think when you translate the word doula, it means like a slave to women, like a women's slave. That's the direct translation. Or servant, I suppose, is the word, women's servant.
Yeah, probably who was there to help at the end when the babies came, wasn't it? The servants.
Yeah, and I think actually it was actually a phrase that was used actually, or referenced first in a book about breastfeeding, by a lady called Dana Raphael. She's a medical anthropologist. I'm just reading my little notes here, and an advocate for breastfeeding. And she was writing a book about breastfeeding, and in that she references the word doula. Yeah. And then I don't know if you know the organisation La Leche League, which is like a breastfeeding organisation, but they, I suppose, they started in 1956, and they came together. They were like mother supporters, so they were like the first people that kind of came in like pulled a group together that were like mums supporting mums. And that's another way I would describe my job, I suppose, as a doula, that I'm mothering the mother, I'm nurturing the mum. And so I think that's where the word sort of first existed, and then the first group of women that were kind of doing that in a supportive circle, that we know, like we're referenced around childbirth and breastfeeding. That was La Leche League, and they still run now.
Yeah, I've used the La Leche. Yeah, I think it does help that if your midwife has had a baby herself. I don't like my last one with Bambi. She was actually pregnant. So there was lots of lifting and things that she couldn't do. Not that I was asking her to lift me or anything, but there were certain things she couldn't do because she was pregnant. She was like, and I often wonder how she got on, you know, because she was like, it was her first baby, and she kind of did look at me as though to say, it's not that bad, really, is it? And I was like, can't wait till she goes into labour and realises.
And the midwife who's never had a baby to sort of have a nice experience is probably quite high, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so as well as being a doula, what other hats do you wear?
Oh, so many. I'm obviously a mum, so that's my main hat. I'm a mum and a stepmum, and I have 2 boys, myself, who came out of me, and then I've got a stepson, and 2 stepdaughters, and that's the hat that I wear the most, I suppose. And then my work hats are doula, birth and postnatal. I'm a breastfeeding peer supporter. I'm a Calm family consultant, which used to be Baby Calm and Toddler Calm, so that's how we met. So that's a lot of support around parenting, in particular understanding normal infant behaviour, normal infant sleep, how it correlates with feeding and weaning, and also one of my favourite things to do, which is toddler behaviour, and help supporting families to understand toddler brains. And then I also support victims of domestic violence and people that are going through separation through the courts, the family court process. So I've been doing a lot more of that recently, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's your training around that? I mean, I'm going to talk to you a bit later on about what's looking forward, where you're going forward. But have you done like training and things to do with domestic violence then?
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of training, actually. I've done so you'll know some of this from when you're a police officer. So I've done a dash assessment training, which is what they use to assess domestic violence. Yeah, I've done a women's aid community ambassador course. I've done a lot of my own sort of self-research about. So there's something called a Freedom Programme, which is about understanding domestic violence and perpetrator behaviour, and also very interested in perpetrator programmes and how to support rehabilitation, which there isn't a great deal of actually out there. No. But it's really needed, actually.
Yeah, because otherwise it's cyclical, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because these behaviours are really deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to unpick them and to change, and and actually to even recognise that what you're doing is wrong. So it's a really horrible situation, and it's a huge epidemic. Actually, it affects so many people in our country, in the world, and there's not a lot being done about it, or we're really on the back foot, I think.
Yeah. Obviously, I've experienced it in my own personal life, and also obviously being in the police for 9 years. That it was like we had a pre-chat, and I was saying, it's like there's not a shift that goes past that you don't get at least one domestic incident. But yeah, often people, I don't want to appear to be pro-offender or offender friendly. I am offender empathetic.
Yeah,
I'll say that because who's to know? We all have disagreements and arguments in our relationships and things like that, and you don't know how. I mean, obviously not all of us, not for all of us, they don't always turn physical. There's a lot more ways to abuse someone though than physical. But the times that I would sort of be sitting with someone in the back of the van who they'd had an incident in their relationship and ended up with the police being called because there had been some sort of an incident that one party or the other felt that they needed to call the police. And it completely rattles through families. It really does, because the police they kind of, it's such a high profile crime that we have to be seen to do something about it. And if you're not, there isn't if you're not, you have to do something about it. So whether say it's a woman who's assaulted a man, they may the next day when the dust has settled, they may kind of think, oh, actually there was no need for the police to be involved, but the police still have to be involved because somebody called the police, and we had to be seen to be doing some positive action about it. But I don't know, it's sort of, it's, as we've said before, is it the right place for this sort of thing to happen, or is there a better way? Is there a more productive way of dealing with these breakdowns in relationships and things? Obviously there's the extremes, and you wouldn't want anything other than for that person to be locked away behind bars, but there's so many things in between, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and it ranges from it's one of those things. It's a horrible thing to compare. Actually, you can't really compare one situation to another. And with regards to sort of, again, I don't want to sound like I'm siding with the offender or the person that harms. It's often really complex because of the dynamic in that relationship. And that's a really hard thing, I think, for a police officer whose first response is to make sure everything's safe in that moment. to unpick. You know, you're not relationship counsellors, you're not able to really unpick what's going on. And that's why I think the police get a bit of a rough deal, really, because they are obviously the most obvious people to call, but their ability to actually see this through to something meaningful is limited.
You've just met these people, and you have to make judgment on who was, you know, because it's like you'll be in one room with the female. Let's just say it's a traditional female-male relationship. You'll be in a room with the female, and your colleague will be in a room with the male, and you'll both come back together for a discussion about what's actually happened. And it'll be, you know what I mean? It'll be he said, she said, and he said he hit me. She said she, no, do you know what I mean? It'll be like, she said he hit me, and he said she hit me. And it's like, where do we go with this? Because it's, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen the other is what you'd say traditionally. And if it was 2 children fighting, wouldn't you? But,
And then the difficulty with that is that often people's experiences end up being completely minimised. If someone hasn't got the time to actually deal with this in a meaningful way, then the experience of the person who's harmed is often massively minimised, and therefore, you know, you end up in this, like you say, it's cyclical, isn't it, in this situation where a lot of, and also, I mean, we have to remember that a lot of people don't want to call the police when they're experiencing something like this. So actually the amount of incidents that will have occurred before you actually even reach out for help is often, you know, it's quite a lot, you know, when we look at stats around DV. Yeah, exactly.
I remember one time before things went horrendously wrong in my marriage, when I was married, something had happened, and I did actually call the police because I was locked in a room and wasn't able to get out. And so I was in the back of a police car, and the questions were being asked, you know, what do you want to do about this? And you know, how far do you want to take it? And it's just like, how on earth? Well, I had 3 sons with him as well. And like, how on earth do you ever make that decision on where to go with that? And I didn't want to get him in trouble. So it's like, okay, well, just let me out. I'll go back into, you know, and it wasn't, I don't know, it's difficult to say because it did turn out to be very horrendous. You know, it did turn out to be like a really difficult situation in the end. But I just don't know what the answer would be, because people are unpredictable. I never ever in a million years would have described or predicted what actually did happen to me in the end. But it did, and you know, how could I have ever foreseen that or tried to deviate from, you know, you can't see into the future.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing that we forget with a lot of this is that, you know, essentially a lot of women that, or I refer to women because it's the predominant way round, but a lot of women that are in relationships with a party that harms them, you know, they desperately want this to work. They actually want this to be okay. They want their family to be what lots of people say is normal, you know, normal behaviour patterns, and so you know, this person who is perpetrating harm is often loved, you know, and is a father, a son, a brother, you know, of people and humans, and going through the criminal justice system, it doesn't quite feel right. Something needs to happen. You know, we can't have people harming people in emotional, psychological and physical ways. Something needs to be done to support that, to stop happening. But I'm not sure that the criminal justice system is exactly the right fit.
No,
that's like something we could probably debate for hours.
I think it's probably, for me, I would say it's down to education. So teaching people that when they feel a certain way, that's to do with them.
Yeah.
Not to do with
how we raise our kids, how we raise our children as well, you know, because, you know, I don't want to like categorize why you would grow up to be someone that harms another person. But there is obviously a lot of research that looks at this topic, and a lot of it is to do with adverse childhood experiences, you know, for that fully grown adult who was once a child, you know, and what was going on there. But also I just think we're becoming now a little bit more emotionally aware, like you're saying, that how we raise our children to sort of understand how your feeling is, it belongs to you, and also that feelings are transient and they pass, and they're acceptable as well. And I think, you know, this sort of feeds into my toddler calm stuff that I do with families, which is around sort of supporting children to understand emotion and to validate their feelings, because actually I think often when we're growing up, we're triggered by our children's emotions massively as adults. I am, like, if I remember thinking about when Max was little and he was having huge temper tantrums, it fills you up, doesn't it, with your own adrenaline and feelings, and you actually in that moment just want them to stop, like whatever they're doing. So your own ability to sort of work through your own feelings and not take it out on the child is huge in that moment. But also for the child, they're experiencing whatever experience that, like, feeling they're experiencing, but they don't have the words, or they're not articulate enough, or that they don't have the brain development to actually express their feelings in any other way but to just be demonstrative, you know. Exactly. And so in those moments, that's really hard as a parent, isn't it, to parent a child who's completely going bananas about something and to be calm yourself.
It's got easier with me as I've had more children. It honestly has, because I've learned from my other previous children, and now with Bambi and with Bonnie, actually, if she's having a massive issue with something, then I don't actually think it's me. It probably is. I've probably gone too far the other way. But no, I think this is okay that she's feeling like this, because it's, you know, anger's an emotion, and I tell that to my boys as well. You know, if you're feeling angry, then it's an emotion. It's not, you know, you shouldn't say to yourself, I mustn't feel angry, I mustn't feel this, I mustn't feel, you know, all the range of emotions that you can feel. I think if you are feeling something, then feel it, and then ask yourself afterwards, why was I feeling it? And Bambi, obviously she's approaching 2, so she'll have little paddy whacks and things at the moment. She's fairly okay with it, but I'm sure it will get worse as she gets older. But she often has little hissy fits where she just storms about. And I just think that is just frustration. You know, she has something, she has a feeling that she doesn't quite know. She can't ask me for what she wants because she can't talk as much as she would like to. So I don't think, oh, it's me, I've let her down in some way, I've done something wrong. I really don't. But I would have done with Josh, my first, you know, I definitely.
Our experiences are so different with each of our children, and also their personalities are different, aren't they? Because, you know, my eldest son was a really kind of chilled, really easygoing and quite textbook child. So I can remember the only emotional meltdown he had in public, whereas when I had Max, he was doing it all the time, like, and he was proper full on. He was like pulling my hair and scratching my face and completely going bananas, and he used to bang his head against the floor as well, in temper and frustration, and it was him actually that led me to becoming doing my baby calm and toddler calm training, because I didn't know what to do with him. I was literally didn't know what to do with him, and it sounds like a cliche, but actually training to do baby calm and toddler calm actually changed the way I parent, for the better, and forever. You know, it's been a bit life changing actually, in that I feel like now that they're a bit older, that my hard work's starting to pay off, although it's definitely a long-term investment. It's one of those things where you're parenting like this and you're thinking, well, this isn't working, because you don't see instant results from it, because just allowing your children to express their emotion and not join in with them is really hard. I
think you just have to, I do it, I acknowledge it, I don't laugh at it. You know, Benson will sometimes laugh at Bonnie when she's having a paddy whack, and I'm like, that is not acceptable, Benson. You don't laugh. You know, her feelings are real. She really, you know, this is real for her.
Yeah.
And, you know, to laugh at it is just such a brush offish. I think that's quite nasty to laugh at someone. You know, if I was, and that's one thing I have learned about how to deal with stuff, is to put myself in their shoes. So I thought, if that was me, how would I fit? What would I want? So and sometimes you have to sort of fight through the bullshit and deal with what is actually the core of it. But also just to give them time to actually even just have that. As long as they're safe, you know,
and you're trying to essentially stop them from taking it out on other people and objects, aren't you? You don't want to
leave the house.
that helps. That does help a lot.
Yeah.
But the thing with laughing, you know, with Benson, he's in his adult rational brain, you know, to look at what they're upset about. It's really hard, isn't it, to relate to it, because they're getting upset about things that, you know, like what colour plate you gave them, or you gave them the wrong cup to have their drink out of. Or Max, it would be like if I opened the banana and broke it in half, he'd go absolutely mental. And you just think, really? Because we've got a fully developed brain, we're like, well, this isn't going to taste any different, is it? Just because I snapped it. But for them, it's not right. It's ruined. Although you're right to try and do the thing of putting yourself in the shoes of others. I think we were talking a little bit earlier about being empathists or having huge empathy for others, and I think that helps a lot with parenting and with being supportive to people, doesn't it?
Yeah. And just to hear what people are saying, you know, rather than like, one of my things that I'll say to Benson now is like, this is relationship wise, isn't anything to do with anything we're talking about now, but I'll just say to him, just please, can you just be kind? Because sometimes stuff that comes out of his mouth isn't, and I know I'm the worst, you know, I can be a right cunt. But if I'm feeling, you know, say we are having a bit of a you know, rub up against each other and not in a good way, he can just be like, you know how it is in an argument, or even just a fallout or a disagreement, let's say. And he can say back to me, and I'm just like, can you just please be kind? Because sometimes I'm in the mood for a bit of a, you know, disagreement, and I can hold my own, but other times I can't. And if he starts coming out with some stuff, I'm just like, no, I can't. I just can't be dealing with this now. So can you just be kind and just watch what's coming out of your mouth? You know.
And just creating space actually for everyone, because I have to do this thing as well where I can be violent in the way that I think, actually, you know, I'm being very honest in, you know, when I'm in those moments of real anger, that the stuff, especially towards my children, the stuff that I would be saying if I was letting it come out of my mouth would be terrible. You can't ever take it back as well either, can you?
That's what I mean with Benson. That's what I say to him. Those words, you can't take them back. And I am the sort of person that I really do take things to heart.
Yeah, me too.
I have a written list of everything in my, not written really, but you know what I mean? I remember shit.
That's me too.
And they go round and round, don't they? So
exactly. So yeah, you're right to sort of create space, because actually when you're not in that moment of anger, and you can actually, one of the ways I sort of explain this is about how the brain works and you know, like we use that term like you'll flip your lid, that sort of rational part of the brain, which is the neocortex here, it doesn't literally do this, but you've got parts of the brain, but it's actually disconnected from your brain, so it's not doing that. But when you're in an extreme emotion, you're not actually able to tune into your rational thinking. So you're saying irrational things that it's really fueled by the feeling inside you, and actually you can create space, which is what you're doing when you're saying to Benson, please be kind and let's not do this now. When the feeling's passed, you can have a conversation without calling each other a cunt, or whatever else you might call each other.
And that would make sense actually with my sons, because they, you know, I can have I can have really decent adult conversations with them. They're 22, 24 and 29, and they can tell me, you know, they can be perfectly grounded and balanced individuals, but when they're angry, they're like unbelievable. There's no reasoning with them. And the stuff that they say, you know, the stuff that comes out of their mouth, it's just like, it's literally the top has come off there.
Yeah.
And then I'll speak to them about it afterwards, and I'll be like, you know, please don't say things like that. But they don't have a lot of control over, and, you know, whether that is linked into what happened when I was married before, you know, that probably.
I think there's lots of things that can influence that, you know, and also this is relatively new knowledge as well. So, you know, when I was being raised by my parents, for instance, you know, there was no sort of emotional there was nothing. We didn't even know what emotional intelligence really meant. So you know, things passed down through generations. So, you know, I've got quite a quick to lose their temper family. It is sort of part of our family trait. And one of the things that Rich and I often laugh about is the fact that we are all quite quick to lose our temper. And his family are actually much better at laughing when things go wrong. And I love that. Like, I'm so jealous of the fact that, you know, so say, for instance, you know, something stupid happens, like I dropped all of the bin all over the floor. I'm like up there in the anger straight away, whereas Rich or his, you know, and his mum and dad would just be kind of making a joke out of it. And I just think that's
got that gene.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that it's something to do with, because both him and his sister are like that. And all three of me and my siblings are like my parents. So I do think that, you know, there's something in the way that things are modelled to you, in the way that we then deal with stuff ourselves.
Yeah, so we can blame our parents then.
A little bit, yeah. There's loads of really good books on this topic. I'll have to, if you put links under your podcast, I'll have to put some links into stuff that I think is really interesting.
Oh my God, we've only done 2 questions in an hour.
I told you, we'd be rabbiting on.
It's me as well, I'm like talking a lot. What are you most proud of in your life?
My children. It's got to be my children. I'm proud of being a mother. I'm so proud of being a mum. You know, I think that's all I ever wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know, but like as a child, I wanted to have children, and that was, you know, you didn't.
No.
Didn't you? Oh, that's interesting.
No,
yeah, no, that's all I wanted to be.
I was proper scared of children. If I ever saw a baby in a pram, I was like, really didn't want to be anywhere near it.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I think the experience of being an older sister. So I was about 5 when my little sister was born, and I wanted to be older. I wanted to be her mum, really, and I really I did mother her quite a lot. I just and so I think that experience of being a big sister, it drove me in life to want to be a mum. And
I was a big sister too.
Yeah, it didn't work that way for you, but then I suppose it depends, doesn't it, what your little sisters are like.
yeah.
I love my sisters a bit. I love both my sisters to bits, but I have I suppose a different relationship with my little sister, because I was around more, I suppose, when she was growing up. And so my children are the thing I'm the most proud of, and my stepchildren. I love being a mum, and I adore all of them, and I want to be good at it. You know, I'm always striving to be. I want my children, when they've grown up, to want to spend time with me, and I want them all to say, when it's, you know, the weekend that they're going to visit their parents, to be like, yes, we're going to see mum and Rich this weekend, and look forward to that, you know, and not be like, oh God, we've got to go and see mum. I want to spend time with me. So as my top goal in life all of the time, that is the thing that I always try to reference, like, when I do this, am I contributing positively towards my goal? Quite
so
often
Sunday dinners around Katie's. That's what I mean, obviously mine are older and grown up now, but they have their own lives now, so it's like I don't see them as much as I'd like to, you know.
Yeah, I can't even imagine being a parent to 20-year-olds.
I know, but you make arrangements and then they get changed or cancelled, and you know, because obviously you have to bear in mind that they will then have, or you know, may have partners, so their partners have got, especially with boys, they've got if they've got girlfriends, they've got mums that they need to see as well, and so you have to kind of balance it all. And I don't see my children, my big grown-up children, half as much as I'd like to. We have lots of phone conversations and that sort of thing, and it's lovely when they're older and you can have, like I said earlier, like conversations with them, and you hear their thoughts and their minds, and you see little traits of yourself in them, and you kind of realize that they are lovely humans, and you know, you kind of that's just an awesome feeling when you kind of, you know, because I was 18 when I got pregnant with my oldest, and obviously having him, and then, you know, I've watched him grow up, and I think he's 29 this year. I don't think he's 30 this year, but so yeah, it's just lovely to see. But you don't stop. There isn't, with mine anyway, you don't stop thinking about them as much as you do. Obviously when they're under your roof, you think about them, you know, because they're there, but when they're not there, it doesn't stop. So I now have 5 little people, and you don't ever see them as adults, you always just see them as these beautiful little hearts. And I often think about, I mean, I have got post-traumatic stress, so I understand that I am weird in this, but I always think about these little five little hearts that are all beating, and I'm like, they need to keep, I want them all to keep beating. I don't want to lose any of them. I don't want any of them to get harmed. And that I think it's called responsibility, is immense. Absolutely, because they're all driving now as well. One of them's got a motorbike, and that the fear that goes with that, I'm sure that probably isn't quite, you know, I'm sure people do actually just kind of let it go and be like, oh, you know, because you know, because we've suffered quite a lot of trauma in our lives, then you kind of you're just waiting really for the next thing to happen. So that's probably why I feel like this, and they're all like it as well. You know, they're all quite traumatized by things that have happened. So you know, we always, if we ring if I ring them or if they ring me, it's always like, don't worry, nothing's happened.
Like the first thing you have to say to each other. Yeah, I think you're right though. When you've experienced big traumas in your life, like you all have, it's hard. You can't ever sort of quite get out of that thought process. A phone call might be delivering you with the worst information that you've ever received.
Yeah, it's shit. But we try and make the most of stuff, you know. And we all really want just to live together in one place. That's what my oldest son wants to do, get a bit of land, because I've got land, obviously, and I just keep saying to them, come and live on my land, although there's no houses on it, you know, you could camp, but you know, I think that's like the way we'll only ever feel safe is if we're all in that one place together. It's weird.
I feel blessed to have all my children, you know, both my children under our roof. I mean, my stepchildren obviously come and go as they live with their other parents most of the time, but there's nothing makes me happier than when we're all here together. It's just lovely. But it's a whole nother world for me, thinking about when my boys are driving or motorbiking or whatever. I can't even bear to think about it.
Well, how old is your oldest?
He's 13.
Yeah, so a while yet, Katie.
Yeah, I've got a little while, I hope.
Then you'll be calling me and saying, Tab!
Yeah, I will, yeah.
When do you feel most alive?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, you know, the time when I feel the most alive is when I'm out in nature somewhere. So I love being near the sea and near water, and I love being out in a forest or outside in amongst wildlife, because I think that's when I can be the most present in my world, you know, actually there, not in my brain thinking about all the 100 million things that I have to think about. So I do try to make time for doing that. But I suppose the other time I feel the most alive is when I'm at a birth.
Yes.
When I'm witnessing witnessing a new baby being born, I can't even describe the feeling of.
Imagine.
It's just amazing watching a new life come into the world, and I've been so privileged to watch, you know, probably nearly 60 babies now come into the world, and that's just, you know, it's such a beautiful experience for me, like such an honor to be in someone's space when they birth their baby.
Yes.
And when it goes, you know, when it all goes smoothly as well, it's just the most amazing
miracle,
feeling.
isn't it?
Yeah, I still can't believe we grow humans inside us. We can get them out of ourselves. Like, I think in the power of a woman, like in the presence of a woman's most awesome power, that's what it is. It's watching them doing the most amazing thing. Yeah, it is a miracle.
Yeah. I remember that when I gave birth first time, obviously your body doesn't know what. Well, no, sorry, your mind doesn't know what to do. Your body certainly does know what to do. And that struck me more than anything afterwards, was like, it was almost like I wasn't in control of my body, because it just knew what to do. And it kind of, it was like, it was like godlike. It knew I didn't know what to do, so it took over, if you know what I mean. It's a really weird way to explain it, but
no, it makes sense. It does make sense.
I was just like, well, my body's amazing. And I remember breastfeeding for the first time and like, oh my God, there's milk in there.
Exactly. I can't believe it.
Yeah. How did my body know to do that?
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
And then this little baby comes out that's like fully formed, that, you know, you can never really, when you're pregnant, you can never really imagine what is inside your belly. And then it comes out and you're like, what? That was in there for 9 months. Like,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So
it is.
that must make you feel alive home.
It does. It really does. It's just, I love my job. I absolutely love my job.
Yeah, I bet. I was going to train to be a midwife.
Yeah, you'd be good.
Well, because when I joined, well, actually way back when I was like, when I first had, before I had any children, I wanted to train to be a midwife, and then I went off the idea, and then it came up again, I think, when I had Declan, and then the idea of being a doula came up, sort of, I think, in between Bambi and Bonnie. So I sort of did toy with that idea for a while. No, it was after Bambi, actually.
Yeah, I think you talked to me about it.
Yeah.
I think you'd be brilliant. I think you'd be brilliant at it. But I can see where you're going as well, and I quite like what you're doing with your little bit of land and trying to sort of move into. I think those worlds are connected in a way.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I think for me, I need to be doing the nice fluffy things. I don't think I can take any more. As much as there is the nice fluffy stuff with being a doula, I don't think my heart, mind, soul, anything can cope with any more trauma. So I think I'm kind of going down the fluffy road now hopefully for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think some of the work that I'm in at the moment is stuff that a bit like being a police officer, you could probably only really do it for a period of time without it affecting your own mental well-being and your own mental health. Certainly, you know, being at births that are straightforward and supporting families in that way is such a lovely, huge celebration, and those are the ones you walk away from thinking I'm going to carry on doing it forever. But then there's the other side of it where you sometimes experience birth trauma, or, you know, poor outcome, or, you know, loss, and then obviously moving into the world of supporting domestic violence. That's it's quite intense, and actually you can't keep giving yourself to other people all of the time, because it does affect you and your own well-being.
And you have to think who's looking after you as well, don't you? You know, you have to
absolutely,
that you're being able to be supported as well.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to do my work if it wasn't for Rich and my family supporting me. And Rich is just like, he's the best thing that's ever happened to me in that respect, because he's so accepting. He scaffolds me so much so that I can do my work, and, you know, he's he's quite intuitive about what I need as well, and so he does really look after me. And if I have been to a long birth or a difficult birth, or perhaps I'm supporting something really horrible, you know, he's there in the background picking the pieces up of the plates that I'm dropping, like not homeschooling properly, or not dealing with the food stuff that I would normally deal with at home. Like, God, they're like gannets, aren't they, wanting to be fed all the time. So I couldn't do this if it wasn't for him supporting me to do it.
Isn't it? You do need the support network, and it needs to be at home as well. It can't be at the end of a phone, or, you know, a friend.
Yeah.
You know, it needs to be that sort of hotbed of support, really. I think.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying that what I'm going to be doing with my land and the retreats and things like that, that's not going to be like all fluffy and the whole time. There is a degree of duty of care with that sort of thing as well. You know, I'm not sort of kidding myself that it's all going to be roses and incense or anything, but it's certainly not the sort of the trauma line that I was going with the police and everything else that I've done. So yeah. It's just knowing really where your strengths are, and I can give 100 and 200 and 300% to that. Whereas if I was going, I don't like to do anything less than 100%, you know. And if I was going into doulaing, I think I wouldn't be giving it 100% because I haven't got 100% to give down that line.
And some, like, you've still got small children as well, and you know, it was much harder when my boys were little to do this work. I definitely had to do less of it when they were younger, and then I had a period where I was a single parent, and it, you know, you're actually compromising too much of your own family sometimes. And there are times where I get the balance wrong now, you know, and Rich and I have to chat about, you know, do I really need to take on this next client, and actually should I take a period of time off? But we're in a position now financially to be able to do that, whereas when I was a single parent, you've got the stress of trying to earn enough money as well, haven't you? And so it's difficult, isn't it? And then I think, like you're saying, in what you're going to be doing, or what I imagine you're going to be doing, because I've been obviously keeping up with the stuff that you've been you've sort of been sharing, but I think the part of it that I love is that like that you're providing spaces not only for this, I know, but like with women supporting women, which is like, you know, women circles and that kind of thing. And I really love all of that. I think it's something that we need as mums and women to be able to sort of have spaces that are just for us.
Yeah, totally. And that is the kind of, I think community is what we're sort of lacking in life, aren't we? That community thing, and that sort of bonding between women, and that you know, feeling that you're not in this alone, I think. And even just like, you know, that kind of that space and time to sit and talk to someone and actually be able to be heard, and to be able to listen to other people's stories and storytelling and that sort of thing, you know. It's rather than being pulled this way or pulled that way, or, you know, it's just being able to give people that time to be able to think about stuff. It's so simple, but you know.
I know, we're so busy, aren't we? We don't get you know, the amount of time we actually give to really truly listening to each other is small, I think, sometimes, because we're so busy doing other things.
And that in nature as well, you know, it's powerful enough in you know, in a enclosed space, like remember the circles you were doing. If you take that outside into nature, it's just so much more I wouldn't say powerful, because what you did was powerful, but you know, it's so much, I think you get so much more from it as well. And I think it's stuff that you can then use in your own lives. It gives you skills and things to be able to then take it home into your own life, and just to be able to actually have more of a quality of life rather than struggling continually.
I agree.
So you did touch lightly on home education.
I did.
I remember you asking me years ago.
Because I remember when I first came to see I think you told me then when we were sort of doing the baby stuff, that you had home educated, and that's another thing that stayed in my mind.
And then you were like, contacted me. I think it was when George was struggling, wasn't he, at school?
He was, yeah.
What was the last straw with him, and how old was he, and what was, because I remember you speaking to me and saying, I'm thinking of home educating, but what was the actual last straw with him?
So he was nearly 6, I think, when he came out of school. So he'd only done sort of reception in year 1, and he was really struggling, and it was horrible. It was really horrible, actually, because the sorts of things he was saying to me was that he was rubbish at everything, and he was living for the weekend, and he was only 6. So and then there was a lot of school refusal going on. So there were mornings where I'd had to sort of literally drag him. This went against every instinct in my body, but to literally, he was holding onto the banister and having to like physically pull him away and take him to school. And we, there were a few times where we both sort of got to the school late, and he was in tears and I was in tears, and I was just like, what on earth is this all about? And obviously looking back, I reflect on what was going on. Maybe I can see that there was difficult stuff for him, actually, in that he had 2 different teachers. He'd had changes of teachers, so it was really kind of up and down. In that he at his age, they just consistency, don't they, and stability. And the teachers had completely different approaches. So one of them was quite sort of strict and stern, and the other one was very kind of empathetic and calm. And I think at that age, sort of not
back out, isn't it, on a daily basis?
Yeah, it really is. And then on top of that, the academic side of stuff that was happening, he wasn't ready for it. He just wasn't. He wasn't there ready in terms of cognitively ready to sort of be learning to read and write. And obviously, as time's gone on, we've discovered that he has dyslexia, and that makes it sound like, when you say someone's got dyslexia, it sort of makes it sound like they've got some sort of illness, but it's not. It's just a different way of learning, a different way of your brain working. And so I think the last straw was when he tried to escape from school at lunchtime. He tried to climb over the fence, and I just thought,
George,
I can't do this to him anymore. And I talked to him, bless him, about it, because the school called me and said that they'd found him trying to escape. And I talked to him when I picked him up, and I said, where were you going to go? And he said I was going to walk home. And I mean, we didn't live just around the corner. He would have had to cross quite a lot of big roads. And I said, and what would you have done if I wasn't there? He said, I would have sat on the doorstep and waited for you. He'd like completely planned what he was going to do in order just to get back home to me. And I just thought, I can't keep doing this. So I spent the summer holidays researching and reading, which is probably when I contacted you and asked you about it. And you probably signposted me to stuff to think about or read, as we do when people are asking these questions. And then I kind of prepped in my head that he was going to go back to school after the summer holidays, but if we had any of these incidents again, that I was just not going to force him anymore. And the first day back, he was really distressed. We'd prepped him for a week that he was going to go back, and I just thought, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it to him. And we've never looked back. It's he's just, he's amazing, and he's so clever, but he's just, he'd rather listen to someone reading than to read himself. And he's got no interest in really writing things down, but he will give him an electrical item, and he'll take it to bits and put it back together for you. He loves building. He's an engineer. He can look at a picture and build the same thing out of Lego so easily. He's just, the way his brain works is fantastic, but that wasn't being nurtured in school, and I've been able to support that at home, which is lovely.
Even just to have a conversation with him, he's very confident, isn't he, in talking to other people, talking to adults. And I think that's one of the good things about home ed as well, is that they all mix. If we ever they all mix with different ages, and it's not sort of like, oh, I can't talk to that person because they're older than me, or I shouldn't talk to that one because they're younger than me. They just all come together, don't they? And adults are included, and It's just like how learning should be. It's not, you know, you shouldn't be segregated to learn, because then how do you learn from your elders if you're in a class full of peers?
Absolutely, yeah. It's like it's skill sharing, isn't it? It's being around adults that have skills that you don't have, and having the confidence to say, what are you doing, and how does that work? And and it's a much more normal way for children to learn, I think.
I'm totally into the natural way of learning, and you know, like copying is the main way that children learn, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do, you know, I think home education isn't, again, I said to you earlier, before we started, I don't like definitive words or defining words like that define something, because I don't think home education really does it justice. We do a mixture of, usually when it's not COVID-19 stuff going on, community learning in the community, like skill sharing, like you were just saying, mixing with lots of other families who have parents that are really involved in the home ed community, that have brilliant skills that they're willing to share and talk to other children about, but also self-directed learning at home, like they're really kind of following their own interests. And I just think, you know, I think about when I've learned the things that I've enjoyed the most as an adult, and it's because I'm guiding what I'm learning and I'm interested in it, that I retain it, and I keep the knowledge. And you know, I'm so interested in birth that I know lots about it because I've done my own research, because I wanted to. And you learn that way, don't you? Whereas you've got someone standing in front of you just rabbiting on about something you've got no interest in, you're not listening.
No, it's like politics, you know. If someone said to me, here's a book about politics, read it and I'll ask you questions at the end, the information just wouldn't go in. I'm just not interested. I'm sorry, I have tried, but I'm just not interested in politics.
It's like, if you saw, you know, that someone was doing a podcast like you're doing, or if someone's written a blog, you're not gonna, if the title puts you off, or whatever it's about, you're just like, oh, that doesn't bother me. I'm not. You're not going to waste your time.
Exactly. That's exactly it. We've all got different interests and different things that float our boats. And if you gave me a book about nature or about different plants, I would be able to hopefully retain. Although this here, can you see those things stuck on my door? They're all Latin names for plants I'm trying to learn. Little post-it notes, because I don't know why, but I don't retain information that easily. But I will remember those, because I need to remember them, because I want to remember them, because I want to be able to know what the Latin name of these plants on my land are. So there's
you're motivated to learn it. So yeah, it makes a difference, a big difference.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, world schooling is probably the best term for it, I think, because if you've put into that as well, the thing that lots of us do when we can is travel. So when you travel with children, they learn. There's a whole learning experience, isn't it? From when you leave your door until you get back, you know, the whole experience of how, and it's life skills as well, isn't it? It's like, you know, a lot of children get to the end of school and don't know how to order in a restaurant, for example, you know, and not
make their own sandwich, or, you know, stack a dish. There's loads of stuff. Cut the lawn. My children are, you know, also watching me do a job that I love, and I think that's really important too. Because, you know, there are parts of my job that I don't like and I complain about, but I want them to have that model to them that, you know, actually you shouldn't be doing a job that you can't stand and go into every day. So many of us get stuck in those jobs as well, don't we? Because, you know, of the need for income. And what I really want for them is to do something they love, regardless of what they earn from it. You know, they're just doing something they feel passionate about when they're grown up, so they're not just on this bloody treadmill that we can all find ourselves on.
I always say to my boys, you know, if they go for a job, I mean, you know, they haven't really got things that are, well, they all work, but they haven't really got what they sort of would class as a career. But I'll say to them, you know, if you can just try this job, and if you don't like it, then no one's holding a gun against your head. If you're not happy going into that job, then you don't have to do it. You know, you can just change and do something else. You know, you don't have to do this 9 till 5 thing. You know.
Yeah.
And that is, like you say, if you because this is an alternative lifestyle, you know, is what we are leading, because we're not sending our children to school, but it opens up into other alternatives, doesn't it? And you just, you know, we're hopefully teaching our children that just because everyone else is doing it this way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. So it kind of I hope it makes their lives their own.
Yeah, and you know, I'm saying all this about homeschooling. George is actually starting at school in September, we think, at a very specific school, which is an Academy for Science and Technology. But it's all very much that he's trying it, and we don't have any expectations. Like, if he starts and he hates it, I'm not going to force him to carry on. I don't feel afraid to say to him, this is one pathway, go and have a look at it, see what you feel, and if you don't like what you see, come back and we'll do it the other way, and that's fine. I think that's the thing. It's sort of showing them that you can, like you've just said about your boys, you can try stuff. It doesn't mean that you're stuck in it forever.
Just I don't like the thought that people are going to school, to go to college, to go to uni, to go into a job that they're going to hate. It really makes me panic that they think that's the only way.
Well, when I was younger, do you remember when you were going, you know, I said I wanted to be a mum, but I also, when I thought about what success meant, it's so different to what I think success means now. Like, I thought success was having a good job, which meant having a good income and being able to afford stuff, you know, essentially.
No, because when I was 12, I said that I wanted to be, I joined Greenpeace, became a vegetarian, and said I wanted to be self-sufficient, living on my own land. So I've kind of achieved in a big roundabout way. But, you know, I've done lots and lots of jobs, and I've had lots and lots of experiences, but it's all kind of been quite useful. As far as a legacy, we've kind of touched on your domestic violence, kind of the way you're going with your projects and life and jobs and things now. So as far as a legacy, how would you like to be remembered, and what can you just tell us a bit about your project with domestic violence? You have spoken about it, but
how do I want to be remembered, and what do I want my legacy to be? I think I want people to remember me as somebody that supported them no matter what, and for kindness and compassion. Like, those are the traits that I value the most, I suppose.
I remember you.
Oh, that's nice to know. I think, you know, I'm really lucky, actually. I'm surrounded by quite a lot of people that already tell me that they think that about me.
Yeah,
it feels lovely, you know. So I guess, you know, I think with the work that I want to do now, I was saying earlier, I think it will be something that I can only do for a little while, but the project that I'm hoping to set up, I'm hoping to set up a charity, which actually essentially I see my role within it as a period of time of setting it up, getting it up and running, having people trained to do the work that I have touched on a little bit now myself, and then actually stepping back from it all. That's how I'd like to see it if it goes to plan. But it's going to take some time, and the first steps I'm taking at the moment are that I am partway through an application process for an entrepreneurial program where you actually you have to fill out an application form. I've had to go to a number of interviews. I've got my next one tomorrow. I've got to do a presentation, and if I get a space on this training program, I'll get some funding, and I will also be mentored, and I'll also be connected to lots of people that have set up really useful community projects. And
it's awesome experience and opportunity.
Oh God, I really hope I get in, but I'm sorry.
So do I. I'm like, I didn't know about this. Fingers and everything crossed.
Yeah, so if I get into it.
Sorry, how are you at presenting yourself?
God. Well, I don't know. Usually I'm all right. Me and my family all laugh about being Larry the Lamb when we're doing presentations. Your voice doesn't come out properly, like kind of. So I'm hoping Larry the Lamb doesn't show up tomorrow.
Oh, bless.
But I'm all right usually. I'm quite. I think because I work, because I do my I've done my Calm Family stuff. And I'm also facilitating doula courses now. So I train other doulas to be doulas now.
You'll be fine.
So yeah, so I'm quite sort of confident at speaking in groups, if I know what I'm talking about anyway. So yeah, I think it's all right.
It's just to know what you're going to say. If you've prepared, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I quite like talking in public.
Yeah.
I didn't used to, but I do now. I feel like I've got more to say now. So it's just a natural confidence that comes with actually feeling like what you're saying is interesting and people want to hear what you've got to say, which completely, you tick all the boxes with that, don't you?
Well, I don't know. I feel like I've moved into a place in my life where I'm being kind to myself, and so if I have any imposter syndrome creeping in, those thoughts where you think, you can't do this, you can't be this person, I talk to myself and say, why not? I can. So I think there's something nice about being I'm going to be 40 this year. I feel like I've moved into a place in my life where I don't have anywhere near as much self-doubt as I used to have.
Yeah, that does come with age, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So where have you got to go?
It's actually on Zoom, so that's good.
Oh, wow.
I'll be again this room.
Yes. Oh, that's at least you're in your own home and you can kind of have your little comfortable pod around you.
Yeah, exactly. We've just got to hope that none of my children come busting in going, where's the Pringles?
That's life though, isn't it? These people will all be at home as well, won't they, I assume?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hope that goes well for you. So is there a time scale with that?
Yeah, so I should find out quite quickly, I think, I think they're doing all the presentations and interviews over the next week, and then I should find out the week after if I've got a place. And if I get a place, it basically 14 coaching sessions over the year, and it will all be kind of concentrating on loads of different aspects of getting something set up. And I'm wanting to do this all really gradually and properly, so I can take my time, make sure I'm not running before I can walk, and really consider what it's going to look like and how it's going to be. And I think one of the most important things about it is that the work that I hope to train other people to do, I'm doing it myself now. And I think that's so important to know what it's like to be that person, to be able to inform the process, so that I can say when I'm training other people, I do that, or I've done that.
It was when I did this sort of thing. This is how it affected me. Yeah. And I think, like, by the sounds of it, and I know, knowing you the way I do, you're so hot on it being the right sort of information and the right outcome, that because there's people's lives involved in this, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The goals of the charity are going to be really to support victims or survivors, if for want of better words, people that have been harmed by another person, to go through separation, go through family court, and to be supported properly. So it's a bit like doulaing, a bit like my role as a doula, but supporting people while they're going through that process, and also helping them to understand the process, because it's really complicated and really complex. And often when you're walking into it, you've got no idea what's ahead of you. And also another angle of the charity is going to be calling for or campaigning for change in the professional services that surround the family, because at the moment it's so hit and miss. Like, you might have a social worker involved in your life that literally has got not very much idea about what it's like to be a victim of domestic violence, or you might have a police officer come to your home and they might not have been trained to understand exactly what's going on either. And you're sort of relying on these services a little bit when you're coming out.
Yeah, obviously I've been in that situation.
Yeah, on both sides.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You kind of, you rely on these people to know what they're doing. So you think if they're telling you some information, you think, well, they must know because they've done it a million times before, but that isn't often the case. And also every single individual case is different as well. That's why it's so complex and so difficult. But I have told you before, haven't I, the victim support lady that came out to my children when their dad was in prison, and she said to them, whilst I went to make a cup of tea, your father is evil and deserves to be punished. And that was that. As far as any support from then onwards, I think we did get them to engage in some sort of support a little bit further down the line, but they've never trusted authorities since that one day when that happened. I came back from making a cup of tea and there were 3 little boys crying, and I was like, what on earth have you said? She didn't get a cup of tea. I hoofed her out of the door. I was just like, what have you done? I'd spent so long clearing up after those words as well. They were like, what does she mean? What is she talking about? What, all these questions. She did so much damage. It's not just what you do say, it's what you don't say as well that people need to know.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, my my opinion is not welcome here in this scenario.
Of course, totally, yeah. But everybody has an opinion. It's
this work is about listening and actually really listening and being really mindful about what you're saying, and understanding that there might be times where you're sitting with someone who's been hurt by another, and they may be saying those words themselves, but tomorrow or next week they might feel completely differently. And so as soon as you express opinion in this situation, you're breaking barriers down, and you're breaking trust actually, and you're actually essentially putting yourself in a position like you were in where they might not reach out to help again. And so it's really important, I think, that the people that are doing this work are really mindful and careful about what they say in situations. Absolutely.
I mean, it's nice to be heard, and it's nice for your words to be to be heard. I don't know if I'm making that sense here, but it's
acknowledged and validated that it's different to agreeing and adding like your own shit onto it. Like
the other end of the scale, when he was due to come out of prison, I had the victim liaison officer saying, oh, of course you won't want any contact with him, and the children won't want any contact with him, and like sort of almost dotting the T's, crossing the T's, deciding for me. And I was like, well, no, that's not what we want. That it completely isn't. I mean, this is somebody's father, like we've said before, their son. It's a person here. They're not just to be written off because of one bad day, which really was what it was all about, a really bad day. But it was just one bad day. And I often say to people, what about, we were married for 17 years, what about those other 16 years and 364 days? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is what I was saying about we have to be really careful about so one of the things I have to be really careful about is not comparing my own experiences to other people's experiences as well, because doing the work, obviously you're often informed by your own experiences, the same as you with some of the police work that you did, but I
never mentioned that.
Exactly, because it's not relevant. And I think that's the thing, is somebody who's experiencing domestic violence, it can look so different for each individual, and sometimes it's horrific and systematic and it is repeated, and sometimes it's one-off situations, and sometimes we're at one end of the scale and the other times we're at another end of the scale. But it's all about individual support and unique individual support for that family at the time, and I think and also knowing where to signpost people to, and just really being the glue that holds it all together while they're going through that process, which doesn't involve sharing your own experience or your own opinion.
No, exactly. That's the worst thing you can do. And I never did, in the police, I never said to a victim of domestic violence, oh, don't worry, I've been through it myself. That would have been the worst thing to say. But you know, in my mind, I knew what they were going through, and I could be, you know, I could show empathy and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I never.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
Being able to put yourself in the shoes of others, you know, it's a massive skill of a good police officer and a good, you know, support person, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we've kind of gone over, I think. How long have we been talking for? 10 hours.
Probably.
What would you say to your 16-year-old self, going from like dark topic to hopefully a lighter topic?
I think probably to be kinder to myself, I think, and also to have not been so intent on doing what I thought was really important then, which was, you know, I'm probably not making much sense here, but because I wanted to be a mum, I think my goal, you know, was everything else was just happening, and my intention was to find someone and have children, you know. That
really surprises me.
Yeah, and I kind of I feel like I missed out because I was so, and actually part of that, and this is quite deep and meaningful, is that I think I wanted to be loved. I really just wanted to be loved and accepted for who I was. So I wasn't very good at picking partners. They didn't do that. I didn't quite get there with the first few, but yeah. So I think I would say to myself, be kind to yourself and experience more. You know, be more open to the experiences that you can have at that age, I suppose.
Yeah.
I was I stayed in very locally to my family. I didn't ever like branch out very far or
yeah. Gosh, our lives have been so different to each other, haven't
they? Yeah.
My life it's just been a whirlwind. I need to interview myself one of these days.
I'll have to do a reverse Tabcast.
Yeah.
I'll be you and interview you.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that, to try more, but I'm sure at the time you were experiencing opportunities that came along, and you know you've got here where you are now, and you're now living your life to the full, aren't you? Maybe
I don't have any regrets. You know, I don't have any regrets because I just, like you were saying earlier, like your career as a police officer at the time, you possibly thought that was what you'd been working up towards, but then suddenly other pathways open up for you, don't they? And I think, you know, before I had my children, I was working for a pharmaceutical company as an events coordinator. I travelled around Europe. I was living the lifestyle of staying in really nice hotels and organising these amazing events.
Yeah.
And I thought that that's where I was going to be. And then I had my children, and you know, I look back on that part of my life, and I think, well, it was actually quite fickle. You know, it wasn't a meaningful job like the one I do now. So you sort of, I think you become who you are from the experiences you've had, don't you? And I think if I hadn't done all of those things, then I wouldn't be where I am now. So I don't have regrets at all.
And on paper as well, that sort of lifestyle sounds like the sort of thing that a lot of people would like to do. Whereas if you know, on paper now, if you said, oh, you're not really a stay-at-home mum, are you? But you know, that wouldn't sound as jazzy.
But, no, it doesn't. No.
But it's so more it's so more fulfilling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Do you relax and chill out?
Well, my favourite place to relax and chill out is going to my parents' caravan on the Norfolk coast. I absolutely love it there. They bought that caravan when George was a baby. So we've had it for about probably 12 years. I say we've had it. We've completely...
It's yours.
It's as much as my mum and dad, yeah. And it's just our happy place. It's and I suppose I liken that place to, you know, I'm not on call usually when I go there, so I'm not having to keep track of my phone all of the time in case someone's going into labour, and we're by the sea. and we've all got our little routine down there of the things we like to spend our time doing. And I just, you know, when I get there, I feel like I can breathe properly. And there's a seat in my mum's caravan that when it's my mum and my seat, and probably my sister's, that when you sit in it, you can just be out to sea, and it's just, I love it there so much. Yeah.
How often do you get there?
Quite often, if we can. I mean, we haven't been for a while because obviously it's been closed, but we're usually there, I would say 4 or 5 times a year, because it's one of those things that if no one's using it and the weather's nice, and you know, we can just, it's not that far away to just pop there for the weekend.
How lovely for your parents to have that for you to use.
Yeah, we've been so lucky, and all of our children, their childhood memories are all based, or holidays are all based around that place, and I love that. You know, it's got really nostalgic feelings for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that will be a continual thread, won't it? Hopefully, it's just so nice, like you say, to have that one place. Everything else in life is transient, and we move from one place to another, but to have that, you know, imagine if they took their children back there when they're older.
Yeah,
exactly. Go there when they were little boys. That's so lovely, all those happy family memories of that place.
Yeah, there's something nice about going back to the same place. I mean, I love experiencing new places too, but there's something really grounding and lovely about having a familiarity around you, I think.
Yeah, definitely, like a comfy old pair of slippers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, Katie, thank you so much for your time this evening talking to me. Have you got any questions just before we finish?
Yeah, I've got loads of questions. We could be here all night, Tab.
Yeah.
But I suppose we don't do this enough, do we? This has just been like a really nice catch up. Yeah. But I do want to know what comes next for you, because obviously your little girls are still at home at the moment, and you've got your bit of land. So what's your intention with this as well? Are you planning on trying to make it bigger?
Yeah. I'd said to you, didn't I? I've asked Russell Brand to come on.
Yeah. I'd be so thrilled if he accepted. I think he could let me come as well to a 3-way Zoom.
I'm sure he'd be up for a 3-way. Well, no, he's settled down now, isn't he? He's got a family and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just sent him a message just because I thought, why not? You know, you've got to aim high.
You don't get, do you?
Yeah. And like I said to you, I sent the email like say 10 o'clock in the morning, and then was looking back at 10:30 to see if he'd replied.
Come on.
He hasn't replied yet, but you know, maybe he will, maybe he won't. But yeah, I mean, I've started it kind of like just with all my interesting friends. I've got so many interesting friends that I'd like to know. I'd like the world to know about, because I've got, you know, some really, really interesting friends. But then I'm going to sort of, when I run out of interesting friends, I'll be asking other people. So, you know, I don't care who I talk to. I'll talk to anyone. But it's just like, there's not that many. Whenever I try and listen to a podcast, a lot of them are American on things that I'd like to hear about. A lot of them are American. So I don't, you know, I've not got anything against Americans, but it's not sort of in my country, you know. And if people refer to things like we're going to be referring to books and places, it's not from my country, you know. So it's
a bit abstract, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah.
So yeah, and you know, someone of my age as well. I'm sort of like a lot of podcasts are people who are maybe a bit younger. So I thought there's no particular reason why I did it. Because I like talking. And I like asking people questions. I mean, it's probably from my interviewing background.
Yeah.
I like, at least I don't have to caution people anymore before I speak to them. And so yeah, I'm just gonna keep going until I run out of people to interview, and then I'll get more. You know, it's just for fun, really. It's just my night to do something I want to do, and this is what I've chose to do with it. As far as the land, so I'm starting retreats on the land for people to come and experience nature at its most basic, but also with things like wild swimming and singing and lots of lovely things. Last year I did a year of research, so I visited lots of different places that kind of took my fancy, that were doing similar things to what I'd like to do. And a lot of them were sort of forest schools and that sort of thing. A lot of them were where adults go, just sort of gathering to kind of see. It was a bit of market research, I guess, but nothing really was the same as what I want to do, because it's not, I don't think it exists. The closest I think I got was one down in Surrey, which was called a Mother's Fire camp. Right. And that was lovely. That was so nice. So yeah, it's just about bringing people together and taking down the tempo of life, getting barefoot, having a chat around a campfire, having a bit of a cry around a campfire. My sister laughs whenever I talk about it, because she says, "Are you going to be singing Kumbaya around the campfire?" And I'm like,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe if you want to. Because there's something about singing as well, as we're together singing, and not even singing, just making a harmonious noise together around, not even around a campfire. But I've done quite a bit of that as well. But also just doing things that women like to do, like yoga and foraging and learning about nature and that sort of thing. I am going to be trying to do things where it's going to be more of a topic. So there's going to be, like some people. Sorry?
Like a theme.
Yeah. There's obviously I do the art stuff. So people are saying, "Are you going to be doing art camps and stuff like that?" But with me, it's like it's not like I've been there, done that. But I know the power of art, so it is something that I'd probably quite like to bring into it. But I think sometimes as soon as you mention art, people switch off as well. So
I suppose it only floats some people's boats, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think you can probably capture so many different things, can't you? And if you have themes, then you'll draw different audiences for different themes, won't you?
Yeah. And it's weird, in my market research that I've done already, just for my I've got a little study group. And a lot of people have said things like, but just be careful what you do, because you can, like my level of sort of weirdness might be not the same as other people's level of weirdness. So, and yeah, like even just for example, and it was really useful actually to hear this person speak, because she said that she'd been for a gong bath and it was the most freaky experience, really negative experience. But I've been for them as well, and I kind of think, the person who leads it has to kind of explain what's going to happen, and that's you have such a duty of care to people when you're going to expose them to some sort of experience. Because I forget sometimes that like even just for like the wild swimming, jumping into a river and swimming in a river is something that I will do all day long. But other people, wouldn't want to get dressed into a swimming costume in front of a load of other women, or who, even in private and then coming out. B, they wouldn't want to jump into a river. And I have to kind of readjust my understanding, because I'm so far into this weird alternative lifestyle that I have to kind of reel myself back sometimes and think, what is normal? Like my sister came to the land the other day, and she'll probably be watching this, so forgive me, Claire, for saying this, but she had an umbrella. And I was just like, she's got an umbrella. She does, and it reminded me that she does. Some people don't like the rain.
There is the sort of being out in all the elements.
Yeah.
And,
I have to really kind of rein myself back and kind of,
foreign objects into my land. I suppose as well, though, when you do things like, I like the sound of retreats and stuff, but one of my favourite festivals that we go to or have been to is bloody hell, what's it called? It's gone off my head. No, not Latitude.
Into the Wild.
No. Oh goodness, Tab, I can't think of it. It'll come back to me in a minute. Anyway, the reason I like it is because it's got like this. It's got everything dotted around.
Yeah.
And you can dip in and out of it. So there's a circus tent, and there's the music, and then there's like the healing field, and within the healing field there's lots of different experiences. And then there's a mum's tent or a breastfeeding tent, and there's loads and loads of different things going on. And I think, in one of the tents in the healing field, they have different things on, and they put them on a chalkboard at the beginning of the day. And so you can go and look at what floats your boat, I suppose, and dip in and out of the things that you want to do. And I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to email you it. But
I said that in this little study group. I said, there's not going to be any situation where anyone is going to make you do something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Before you come to the retreat, you're going to know exactly what's going to happen. Not necessarily what time, because we want some sort of a flow, but you're going to know what's going to be offered. But it's not going to be like, you will jump in this ice cold water and swim with the pikes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I'm not in. I do have a comfort zone and an uncomfortable zone, but I do try anything, and I have to keep reminding myself that people are, within, quite understandably so, they are still, this might be a new experience for them. So I'm probably going to have like tier 1, little bit weird, tier 2, little bit more weird, tier 3, completely and utterly wacko.
Yeah, you can have a woo-ometer. This is how woo this is. That's what we call it, being woo. In the doula world, in our doula community, and I have to say, we do, because there's a lot of us that sort of come into the doula world, and there's a scale of doulas. You've got your kind of really sort of run of the mill. I don't want to say run of the mill, that's the wrong way to say it, but just like you just know what you're going to get with them. They're kind of very straightforward, and everything is as it is. And then you've got a grade going up to people that are
people, isn't it? Not just doulas.
Of course. But
how for you then?
I don't know. I sort of move around in it, but I do like a bit of woo. I do. So, because I'd be well up for trying lots of things. I love wild swimming, and I've been to some those gong baths before, and I have to say I've had both experiences. I've had the amazing experience, and I've had the one that's taken you to the place where you don't really want to go. And so it's but I'm open to, I like trying it all, and I love singing together, that sort of stuff. And this is all it's all very much part of my world, in that I can mold myself a little bit in where I sit on the scale, I would say.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? And it's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and experiencing new things. And
so one of the things my friends do is this, I keep forgetting the name of stuff. I'm telling you about all this stuff and I don't even know what it's called. It's like a dance thing. Oh, what's it called? I'm going to have to email you this as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, they keep inviting me to it. It's where you
drink
dance.
cocoa?
Sorry?
Do you drink cocoa before?
I don't know if you drink cocoa, but you definitely...
There's a dancey type thing where you drink ceremonial cocoa, and then you just dance freely, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it. It sounds similar. I don't know about the cocoa part though. No one's told me about that bit. But and it freaks me out, the thought of it. Like, I associate dancing with drinking alcohol, which is really bad actually. Like, but that's when I dance, I've usually had a cocktail or a glass of wine. And the thought of drinking cocoa and dancing just completely frightens me.
I do know, because that's what we're going to be doing as well. But it's not about just. It's about how you approach people. So it's not about saying, right now everyone dance. It's about, okay, right, we're going to drink the cocoa, and obviously it'll all be explained why and what's going to happen, what you might experience. It might be with or without cocoa, but I'm trying it at the moment myself. Because I'm wanting them to be alcohol free as well, these retreats. But then
Yes.
I can do what I want. I can be like, some I can say, yeah, bring wine. Some I can say, no, we're going to be alcohol free, because I think if you're hungover or if you've got alcohol in your system, then you're less likely to experience it to the best of how I want it to be for each person. So
yeah, I agree.
And then you can choose if you want to come on one with alcohol or you want to come on one without alcohol. So you know, but anyway, so the cocoa thing, we're going to be, it won't, you know, I won't be just saying, okay, now everyone dance. It's like a choreographed thing. So you actually, you're taken through it step by step, and the thing that I do with that is it's like a trauma release thing, and it's basically shaking. So it's that you shake each part of your body, you fling like this. So you can imagine flinging your arms, and then flinging your legs and your bum and your boobs, and in the end you're sort of like shaking, but it's like it's done to music. So you're doing it all over, so you are actually dancing, and so it's because it's step by step, you'd feel more comfortable doing it. Because I have, you know, I'm not the most confident person. If someone just said to me, okay, right, dance, you know, I'd be like, oh, what sort of...
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those things as well where your imagination can drive you crazy, because you can't, I think if you can't place it in your imagination what it's going to be like, then you can end up making it into all sorts of things, can't you? But yeah, I mean, I tried to make the Inner Women's Words events alcohol free, because I just think, you know, I really like to give people opportunities to actually sit with feelings that come up, you know, and not kind of try and change them or numb them or whatever, which, you know, alcohol can do a little bit, can't it? But it didn't work. People sometimes snuck their own glass of wine into that. But, you know, it's one of those things that I think, like you say, you can have some things that are and some things that aren't. It sounds really exciting though, Tab, and I can't wait. I'd love to host an Inner Women's Words there as well.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. There's so many people I want to get onto the land and to do, because, you know, doing things in a building is fine, but doing them in nature is, you know, adds another element to it. And there's so many things that I could just host people for the rest of my life and still not do all the stuff I want to do. But I kind of just want to be able to lead. That's what I like, lead and teach at the moment. That's my kind of where I want to be going with stuff. And facilitate. That's my
facilitating spaces is one of my passions as well. I love it, and I think you'll be excellent at it. Oh, well, you are already, but I think this is lovely that you've got this little project going on.
Yeah, I hope so. And it's also about being part of it as well. You know, I think a lot of things I've done, I've sort of people have come to them, like the arty stuff I used to do, because I used to do a full day art and soul creative workshops, they were called. And people would forge friendships with each other, and they're still having friendships now. And I still have contact with these guys from those groups, a lot of them still, but they had I was the facilitator and the teacher, so to speak. And you know, I wanted to be part of it, which I was, but, you know, I don't know, I kind of, it's a different space, isn't it, that you hold when you're teaching something, like, it's, you know, rather than actually being part of it. So there's so many opportunities for every kind of thing that I want to do. I just want to start. That's with everything at the moment with COVID, it's just people are scared to leave their houses, so it's just not happening.
Yeah, although I would say that your outside space is more likely to be up and running before a lot of inside spaces. It feels different, doesn't it, to be outside maybe? But yeah, it's really been a bit of a bummer, really. It's put everything on hold, hasn't it, the COVID stuff? But hopefully this time next year we'll be
hopefully
out of it.
I've got the space for people to be 2 meters apart at least. We can have one at the end of the land. Okay, well that's I've got further questions, but I think that I've used enough of your time this evening, so thank you.
So it's lovely to talk to you, Tab. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to end it now, but I'll still keep chatting to you. But thank you very much, Katie. I will be putting the links to everything at the bottom of the when I edit this, all the things that Katie's mentioned. And if you've got any questions, then you can just ask them in the comments, and either I or Katie will see them and get back to you if you leave an email address. Thank you.